Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we try to decipher that Sonic Origins pre-order chart, but can't find our decoder rings. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as I am always joined by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including release dates for Splatoon 3 and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And then on Thursday, we're tracking Nintendo health initiatives and comparing them to the fitness trends at the time. But Mark, in the meantime, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I had a doctor's appointment a few days ago.
Okay.
And I knew they were going to do blood work. So leading up to the doctor's appointment, just 72
Just
hours
drank a
before.
lot of blood.
No, I was like, I'm going to basically like a kid who brushes their teeth only right before the dentist.
Hold on.
I was like,
You thought you were going to fool your doctor.
I'm like, these 3 days.
Yeah.
I'm eating salads.
Uh-huh.
Fried chicken will never touch these lips. Like, it would make such a big difference. Like, they wouldn't be able to tell. Like, they'd be like, oh, yes, clearly.
Right. They're like, we will ignore the 4 decades of bodily neglect.
That's right. But don't worry. As soon as that blood was out, I was calling my husband being like, you want chicken nuggets?
See, here's the thing. I think you should go the opposite way, right? I think you should really treat your body like an anti-temple as you lead up to the blood work so they can give you the best drugs, right, to like make you better, right? It's like right before you go to the dentist, you should have a donut.
Oh, sure. So that way they're like deeply concerned and they're like, we got to pay. Look, we have to pay like special attention to you. We're keeping our eye on you.
You want them to use the good equipment, the good goo on your teeth, right? So like just go in there after, eating like a bucket of caramel corn, and then they can do what they need to do.
You bring up such a good point on multiple fronts, and I just want to explore for a moment. Is an anti-temple like an actual place you can visit? Is it like those places in Hong Kong that you can go to just like destroy things to let out stress? Is that an anti-temple?
I don't know. I mean, because I started down the metaphor like treat your body like a temple.
Absolutely.
And was like, you'll figure out what the opposite of a temple is by the time you get to the end of the sentence. Mark, I did not. So I just said anti-temple. But yeah, I guess like one of those places that you can go to where it's like a storefront in a mall. And you can just like wreck stuff up in there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I saw that in a movie recently, or maybe a TV show. The characters were doing that. I don't remember. I don't have it. Maybe it was on Grand Crew. Looking over to Sarah. She's not even paying attention. It doesn't matter. Speaking of things Sarah's not paying attention to, my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch, would you like to borrow it? You can get on a list to do so if you want to email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com and give us a mailing address where we can send you my copy of Sonic Forces. Do not put the address of some sort of anti-temple because it should not be destroyed. But other than that, there are no rules. I send it to you. You play it for as long as you want or not, and then you send it back. I pay for postage both ways. There may be a copy of Untitled Goose Game in there, and that's fine. You don't need to worry about it.
It's the perfect program.
Perfect program.
Another thing you can do is you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or anywhere that you get your podcasts, and you can review stuff. We appreciate it so much. It helps people find the show, grow this Nintendo Cartridge Society of ours. If you leave us a 5-star review on the US Apple Podcast Store, we can see it, and we'll give you a shout out on the show. If you leave us a review anywhere else, we can't see it, but we would still love to give you a shout out. So send us an email, hit us up on Twitter. So that way we can acknowledge your contribution, just like Kid Icarus 222, who left us a 5-star review on the US Apple Podcast Store this last week.
You know what I appreciate about the username Kid Icarus 222 is that it is followed by 2 exclamation points, which makes me think that it is both a Kid Icarus reference and a Punch-Out reference.
No, so the exclamation points were my addition.
To
express how my enthusiasm,
okay.
for thanking them. Also, I really loved their review. It's titled Enthusiasm with an exclamation mark and says, "These boys make me feel better about being a grown man who is very much so hey for Nintendo."
So hey for Nintendo.
It's what we do.
It is what we do.
By comparison, you will always look better than us.
Wow.
It's an NCS promise.
Yeah. Feel good about yourself by comparing your life to ours. Mark, we did an episode last week about RPGs that we would like to see come to the Nintendo Switch that have not yet been ported over there. We got some feedback from the episode, including an email from Chariot Goblin. Chariot Goblin writes, "Hey NCS, one RPG that deserves a shout out is Pokemon Conquest for the Nintendo DS. It's a 2012 tactical RPG developed by Koei Tecmo, published by the Pokemon Company, and distributed by Nintendo. It's a crossover between the Pokemon and Nobunaga's Ambition franchises. Basically, it's Pocket Monsters teaming up with real historical figures from feudal Japan in Fire Emblem-like gameplay without permadeath. Thanks and all the best."
What? This game sounds amazing.
I think we've talked about Pokemon Conquest before, not that we know anything about it really, but I know that other people have brought it up to us before. I've never had it pitched to me so concisely.
Yeah, that sounds so funny.
It does sound really funny. It makes me wish that we had like an American version of that. Like I want Pokemon in like the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, you want Pokemon and
Codename Steam. That's right.
Mashed up.
That's exactly what I want. And then we also got an email from Aaron. Aaron writes, "Hi guys, thanks for another great episode. I would like to see Mother 3 on the Switch. Pretty much every discussion of games missing from the Switch includes Mother 3, so it was great to hear about some games that I was not as familiar with. I actually purchased Mother 3 for the GBA in Japan a couple of years ago, or years after it was released, and I lost the game pack before I could get very far in the game.
No.
A couple years later, I got further on an emulator, but then my save file was corrupted somehow. Are there any games in your lives which seem to be cursed? You want to finish them, but the powers that be just won't let you."
I'm trying to think.
I feel like it's most games for me, right? It is a rare game, I think, these days that I actually do end up playing and finishing. I just fall off games. I quit very, very regularly, but not often for any like technical reasons or just like
right,
like
acts of God.
Yeah.
I can't think of any examples where like the world got in the way of me being able to finish a game. Usually I just stop.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can think of examples where the world is a vampire, right? Sent to Drain.
No, what is that a reference of?
That's Smashing Pumpkins. That's a Bullet with Butterfly Wings.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yes.
All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. And before we actually dig in, thank you, Chariot Goblin, and thank you, Aaron, for those emails. Love hearing the other RPGs that people want to play on Switch. Mark, what have you been playing this week?
Well, of course,
an RPG on Switch?
We've been playing, yes. So I have been playing Dragon Quest XI's Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. And I don't have much new to report here. I am still in Chapter 2, but what I was talking to or listening to something where this game came up. And I actually think, now that I think about it, it was an episode of Axe of the Blood God.
Okay.
The RPG podcast that is hosted by Nadia Oxford and Kat Bailey and another person whose name I'm blanking on, and I apologize for that. But they were talking about Dragon Quest XI's Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Actually, I can't say that it was the definitive edition for the Nintendo Switch, but they were talking about the game.
Right.
And they mentioned that the end of Act 2 is one of the most like devastating experiences they've ever had. And I'm at the beginning of Act 2.
Yes.
And devastating experiences they've ever had in a game. And I'm at the beginning of Act 2, and I am finding it difficult to build the momentum back up into what I was enjoying so much before the end of Act 1, and even in the interlude a little bit, because it is a fairly like hard reset.
Yes.
You spend the first act, getting the team together and going on an adventure.
But you don't really know that you're doing that in Act 1, right? Like you're sort of just on the adventure.
It comes to comparing pretty quickly.
I feel, yeah, it does, but I don't, the difference between Act 1 and Act 2 is in Act 2, there's a team out there that you need to put together.
Yeah.
And I guess like you sort of intrinsically know that just from like you're playing an RPG. But like the game doesn't start off being like you must find your allies and
Right.
fight against whatever evil.
Eh,
It starts off as like a solo adventure, and you meet people and they become your friends, they become your allies. But like in Act 2, you feel as though you are owed those allies, and you just don't have them all back yet.
That is very true. And because you have such an attachment to them, like you're like, I want to get to the point where
Yes.
I'm bringing these people back into my party. But I'm finding it difficult to like, because it's so much of a hard reset and because it like loses a lot of the momentum. And so it's like, okay, I know that I want to continue, but the actual like gameplay, like moment to moment right now, I'm finding to be a little bit of a slog. So I don't know. Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch has been a really kind of like, I overall like stepping back and looking at it, I'm like super positive experience. The actual like hour to hour, moment to moment gameplay, sometimes like the pacing is a little lumpy.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, you have to do some of those resets, and I believe everybody, including you, who have said that like it is totally worth it. But it just is, when there's so many other like things and games that are trying to like grab my attention, it's a little hard to like be like, okay, now I need to like eat my vegetables in this game a little bit.
Right.
So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, we were in like such a good stretch for a while where like we weren't playing other stuff, that it seemed like you were making real progress in Dragon Quest. But you'll get back to it. I trust.
Totally.
I believe. We both played, of course, the Tetris Maximus Cup this weekend, so we could get that Kirby theme. Mark, I was so close to winning my first game out. I ended up getting second place, and that's good. That's great. Like I should feel good about it. But I just like, man, I want to do the like one game, 100 points. You know what I mean? And just knock it out.
What is the so in the theme, the first music is like the
song,
like
Yeah.
the pop song
Right.
that is sung in the like nonsense language of the game.
Right. Is it
Right?
nonsense or is it Japanese?
I thought
I don't know.
Oh, I assumed that it was like the nonsense language
Oh,
of
I
the
have,
game.
I have,
But
I
I
have no
guess I
idea.
don't know.
Right.
So oops on my part. And then the second part of it is just like the main theme. Like once you get
Yeah.
past 50, if you're in the last remaining 50 players, and then what is like the top 10 or whatever?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that like immediately
No,
grabbed you.
and like didn't make me like excited to be like, oh my god, it's this. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fine theme. There are no mouthful Kirby piece or Tetris pieces, which is fine, I guess. But like, it would have been nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, I'm glad that they continue to support Tetris 99 in this way, especially when it seemed for a second like they weren't going to anymore, or we were worried about it.
Yeah, and I know your personal goal is a one and done.
Yeah.
Mine is do it in under an hour, which I accomplished.
Hey,
Felt pretty good
well
about
done,
that.
well done. What was your highest finishing place? Do
I
you
think
remember?
it was like right around 25. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to both of us and to everyone who likes Tetris and Kirby at the same time. I'm continuing to play Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers edition. Some weird difficulty spikes in this game that I don't remember. And maybe I am in the wrong area. But every now and then I just like walk into a cave or something, and the enemies are just totally outmatching me. And I'm just like, okay, I need to be somewhere else. Still really like the game. I'm going to be like sort of casually making my way through it for a long time, I think. But I am also playing Dragon Quest Builders 2 because it was part of the free trial for Nintendo Switch Online subscribers this week. Now, this is a game that I had played the opening hours of before in the Jumbo demo, but that was like 3 years ago at this point. So I just started all over again, and I'm not quite caught up to where I had finished the Jumbo demo, but I plan on playing a little more tonight and tomorrow to like really, make the most of my time with it before the trial ends. And that's such a special game. I think I may actually pull the trigger on it this time and just buy it when the trial is over, just because it's so cute and so like addictive and fun to like build stuff in a Dragon Quest world and have the sort of like RPG adventure moments between, building towns and building settlements and stuff.
So because you played the demo,
I could have uploaded that save data.
that's what I was
to
wondering.
the full version. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I really like these free trials. Have not played Dragon Quest Builders 2, but I did play some of the original game
Yeah.
and found it to be really fun, really like addictive, really cute. Um, the second one is supposed to be even like better.
Let me ask you this. Can we play that game together? Is it like a co-op
I don't know.
game? Because if it is, we should stop anything else that we're doing and just do that.
Patrick, I have to make progress in Dragon Quest XI's Echoes of the Hallucination Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch, but that would be really fun. I would love to do that.
Co-op. I'm looking right now.
And even if it's not, maybe we should like just play it together.
What do you mean?
Just like
go over to each
together.
other's homes.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
exactly.
Dragon Quest Builders 2 is exponentially more fun with friends. Here's how to unlock multiplayer. Thank you, thegamer.com. All right, so we're gonna end this episode of the podcast and just go on to that. No, obviously that's not what we're doing. Mark, have you been playing anything else this week? Did we get through all of that?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right, now I got to go back and do the right music cues. That's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
So last week on Thursday, April 21st, Nintendo released 3 new games for the Nintendo Switch Online Sega Genesis: Shining Force 2, Space Harrier 2, and Sonic Spinball. Patrick, are these games that you are familiar with at all?
Not really. I'm sure at some point I played Sonic Spinball. I did have a like Sonic Master collect. I forget exactly what the name of the collection was, but it was the one that was on GameCube that had a bunch of Sonic games on it. I'm pretty sure Spinball was one of them. But I know that I also in my mind, what's the Sonic 3D game that's sort of like an isometric view? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
I get that and Spinball confused, and Spinball is not that. Spinball is a pinball game. So I guess what I'm leading up to is I'm eager to try it out. But I don't think I have any actual memories of it. I would also like to just check out Shining Force 2, having played a fair amount of the fourth one for our Sega Genesis month back in December. What about you?
Yeah, no, I have not played any of these games. I remember you really enjoying Shining Force 4?
Yeah.
Is that what you just said? Yeah, Shining Force 4 when we talked about it.
To an extent. I enjoyed it to an extent. I was happy to stop playing it when we got to the end of our sort of experimental period there.
Yeah, with all of this Sega Genesis stuff, I don't really have any experience with any of them, and yet I recall fond memories of our time exploring it in December.
Yes.
And in those episodes being like, I should look more at the Sega Genesis library. So I'm not really taking advantage of what is being offered to me, but I should.
Yeah. As these games keep coming out, and as I am like, oh, I should really check that game out, or I should get back to Shining Force 4 or check out 2 or whatever, I am increasingly drawn to the idea of buying one of those Genesis controllers for the Nintendo Switch. Mark, talk me down.
I mean, Patrick, you know that I'm terrible in that role.
You're not going to do it. He's not even going to do it.
I don't think I'm going to try because I totally understand why you would want to. I think as people, or at least speaking for myself, I guess, as someone who did not own a Sega Genesis, was not a Sega kid, I can 100% understand the appeal of experiencing these games the way they were like meant to be experienced.
Yeah, well, and there's also something like so clarifying about just having the 3 buttons. And so many of these games, like, because 3 is an unintuitive number of buttons, they have like something on the screen that says like A does this, B does this, C does this. And just having those actual A, B, and C buttons, I don't know. It just seems like that would be very helpful instead of like looking down at the controller and being like, so I guess B is probably the bottom one, A is the one on the left, and C is the one on the right. But like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I completely agree. I mean, I feel like it's the same sort of thing for like the Nintendo 64, where it's like because that's a now very non-standard controller. Same with like the Genesis having those 3 buttons.
Yeah,
where it's like like clarifying, like you said, I feel like is a really good way to explain it, because I feel like a lot of times the control schemes aren't super intuitive on modern controllers.
Yes.
But when you get the actual controller, like intended controller in your hand,
then
makes
it makes
a lot more
sense.
sense.
Yeah, it is interesting that well, I really like the Super NES and the NES controllers. the modern controllers aren't so different as to make those like necessary, but I do feel like Genesis and Nintendo 64 kind of need those controllers to have that experience. It's very strange.
I feel like my recollection is that the Nintendo 64 controllers have not really been in stock recently. I know that they promised
I would
to
believe
restock.
that. Yeah. You have two, right?
I do have two.
Yeah.
I wonder what the status of the Genesis controllers are.
That's a great question. I'm going to look it up while you keep reading the new releases.
On Wednesday, April 27th, the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe is released on the Switch eShop and other platforms.
Which is some kind of weird story game. I don't.
I was doing a little bit of research on it before we started recording, and it looks like it started out as many games do as a Half-Life 2 mod, and this Ultra Deluxe Edition is a complete I think re-rendering of the world. But you play as a character in this kind of dystopian corporation whose job it is to just push buttons when commanded to at a computer terminal, and then one day the screen just goes blank, and which has never happened before. So you get up from your desk and start exploring the office environment, and I think it's
it's like Lost. kind of.
But yeah, very what is the word I'm looking for? Not experiential storytelling, immersion storytelling.
Yeah. Well, that seems cool. Mark, I do have an update. It looks like you can order Genesis controllers for the Nintendo Switch right now with your Nintendo Switch online subscription for $49.99, and they're available.
Oh, okay. But the Nintendo 64 controllers are sold out. Is that right?
I only thought I was doing research on one of these.
Let me talk about as of Thursday, April 28th, which Bugsnax is released on the Switch eShop. This is a game that was originally on the PlayStation 5.
Yep.
And is now being released on other platforms. My memory is that this has a really catchy theme song and was being compared to Pokemon a little bit.
And Animal Crossing a little bit too, right? That it's you're on an island and you're sort of searching for these different animal creature things, and making nice little habitats for them or something like that. I can't really claim to understand it.
Yeah, I don't know what the
gameplay
loop.
Yeah.
It is very cute. The aesthetic is really adorable. And then on Friday, April 29th, Nintendo Switch Sports is released for Switch. And also the Min Min amiibo from the Super Smash Bros. Series, both getting a release on Friday.
I am excited about Switch Sports, but I think we will talk more about that later in the episode. I'm surprised that more of these, more amiibo keep coming out.
Right. I mean, it's crazy now at this point that we have to be over a year out from Min Min being revealed, at least for the Fighter Pass.
Yeah, the character, because she was the first one.
Yeah, she was the first one of the second.
Yeah, the second wave.
The second wave, but yeah, we have a lot of. It seems like we really only get amiibo for Smash Brothers at this point, and that seems just like it's going to continue for at least a couple more years at the rate that they're being released.
Yeah, I mean, provided that they're going to actually finish doing all of them. We've talked about this. They have not revealed a Sora amiibo.
But even if they don't do Sora, some of the other
there's still 4 other amiibo that need to come out. Yeah. Mark, I have an update. The Nintendo 64 controllers are not readily available. So I'm just going to add the Genesis one to my cart.
Yeah. Thrill as Patrick enters his credit card number on the show.
If you listen closely, you can tell which buttons I'm pushing by the sound they make. All right, Mark, those are the new releases. Let's close this segment out. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance, 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, we are talking about M&Ms, M&M candies. What are our favorites? Let's start there.
So I think...
Do you like M&Ms?
I do like M&Ms. I think peanut M&Ms are my favorite variety, but the classic M&M is probably the platonic ideal of a chocolate candy.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And I think that they like of a chocolate candy, like it's such a specific kind of candy and such a specific avenue for chocolate, a chocolate candy. But yeah, I think the shell's not too sweet, it's not too thick, and I feel like the plain M&Ms are like, yeah, that's where it's at.
I like again.
I do also like the
peanut M&Ms are my favorite. I understand the appeal of plain. You talked about the shell being like the perfect thickness, and I think M&M minis,
they mess it up.
They're bad. They're real bad.
Yeah, it's too much shell.
It is too much shell.
Yeah.
So like the ratio is off. I have a question for you about M&M. So there's the M&M characters.
Okay.
And red
recently got a redesign.
Right. So red represents the regular M&Ms.
Yes.
Yellow represents the peanut M&Ms, but does orange, green, brown, and blue, do they all represent varieties, or do some of them just represent colors? And
yeah. I think at some point they did represent different kinds. I think they're just more fluid, right? That like they have been different things at different times.
But like brown, I guess maybe brown is like has been caramel in the past.
Well, I don't know.
Like represent caramel, because like orange I think of as crispy, but I actually don't think crispy M&Ms exist anymore. So it's probably like pretzel or whatever exists now.
Well, yeah, I mean that is a good point, but I also think that all M&Ms exist somewhere in some capacity, right? Like there's
explain.
There are so many different
M&Ms
kinds.
are like matter. You can't destroy them.
They can be neither created nor destroyed. That's what the second M in M&M stands for: Mars and matter. But they I think any kind of M&M that they have ever created is in production somewhere or being sold somewhere, just because there are so many different kinds, and there is this like appetite for niche M&Ms.
Interesting. I think
the M&M store, for example.
Oh, sure. You think that Crunchy may not be able to buy at like an Albertsons, but you would be able to buy
at an M&M store.
At like an M&M store,
right? Or like yes, exactly. Just because I mean, like, I don't know. There are so many different kinds of candies that have like extra varietals or variations that I don't know. I would think M&M would be stupid to like actually let things like disappear forever, right?
How do you feel about? So we've discussed plain and I was going to say yellow, but peanut M&Ms.
Yeah.
The other varieties.
Fine.
So M&M just kind of gets like, other than minis, which we've discussed, just kind of gets like a pass.
Well, so not. I mean, Sarah recently bought a bag of almond and a bag of pretzel, and pretzel a miss. I don't like them. As a fan of chocolate covered pretzels, they are not chocolate covered pretzels.
Interesting. What color is do you remember? This is not like.
What color is the bag?
Yeah.
No, I took the garbage out. I can't go digging through my trash to find out for you.
But you would have done it.
I would have done it. Yes. No, I don't remember. But yeah, I mean, all the other like kinds of M&Ms, I just feel like they're trying too hard. Okay, the almond M&M, it looks like the character is blue.
Okay.
And the bag is like tan.
Got it.
This is almond.
Okay.
Yeah.
So blue represents almond. The blue M&M is an almond M&M.
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's always been like that or if it will always be like that. What are your feelings on other kinds of almonds or other kinds of M&Ms?
I generally stay like I was burned by crispy. Again, I don't know that crispy exists anymore. I think they replaced it with pretzel.
Looking it up.
But yeah, I mostly just stick with regular, and well, I guess we'll never know what the second one is, although you can probably guess based on my previous answers.
Wow. We were accompanied today by cellist Timotheus Petrin and a pianist George Jianyu Fu. All right, Mark, let's get into the news.
Last week, Nintendo announced that the release date for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is moving up to July 29th. Originally, the game was scheduled to release in September when it was originally announced just a couple months ago.
Yeah, at the Direct, right? In February. This is the kind of thing that I feel like only Nintendo could do. You have a note here about that the consensus sort of from the analyst crowd is that Nintendo is always completing games ahead of time and then holding them for appropriate like marketing beats or openings in their release calendar. But it's fast. Like I don't know another publisher, or I guess publisher is it, publisher or developer who can just move the release date up 2 months.
Yeah, we talk a lot about Nintendo generally, like for the most part. Occasionally you get a Metroid Prime 4 or a Breath of the Wild 2, but for the most part Nintendo, like between reveal and release is just a few months.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason they do that is for situations, like this, where they can behind the scenes like shuffle releases around. And also it seems clearly because kind of like related to this is that when Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was announced to move up to July, everybody had kind of assumed that Splatoon 3 was going to release in July. So when Xenoblade Chronicles
Sort of based on nothing, right?
well, based on the fact that it was
release
summer
date.
release, and then looking at what else has been announced, it made sense that it would either slot in July or August.
Yeah.
And I believe Splatoon 2 was a July release, so it just kind of like made sense.
Yeah. Well, and also just looking at, we know that April we're getting the Switch Sports. We just got Kirby in March. We're getting Strikers in May. So
or the beginning of June.
June,
Yeah,
that's right. So yeah, just being like, yeah. So then July makes sense.
And so when Xenoblade Chronicles 3 moved up to July, everybody was speculating that Splatoon 3 was then going to like take that September slot, and that turned out to be true. But I feel like what that illustrates, assuming that Xenoblade Chronicles, like when Xenoblade Chronicles was rumored at the end of last year, the kind of like rumor at the time was the game is done and has been probably for a while. And that seems to be the case if they're able to move it from, September to July. But I think it also shows that not all of Nintendo's games get done way ahead of time.
Yeah, true.
Right? Because clearly they decided Splatoon 3 needed a couple of more months of polish.
Right.
And so,
well, and ditto the sequel to Breath of the Wild,
right,
which is no longer coming out this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, just kind of interesting. Doesn't really change my feelings towards Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or like whether I intended to pick it up or not. But yeah, just the inner workings of Nintendo.
Fascinating little, yeah. I do think it. What's crazy to me is like how is this happening, right? Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came out at the end of 2017, and then they had the Torn of the Golden Country come out maybe like a year later, and then they did a remaster of the original, and now here they are with the sequel, all within the the release. During that same time, they just put out Breath of the Wild. You know what I mean?
And
like
we're
still
one
waiting for
like
the sequel.
Mario platformer.
Yeah. How are they putting these games out so fast?
I think Monolith Soft is really big.
Yeah.
But also seemingly very efficient, like as developers.
Yeah.
So the corollary to this, of course, is that a few days after Xenoblade Chronicles 3 got its new release date, Nintendo released a release date reveal trailer for Splatoon 3 and confirmed that the game is coming out on September 9th, 2022.
Right. Maybe not moved necessarily from the summer release, because September is still technically summer.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit outside the
end of summer for sure.
Yeah.
And then as part of the reveal, Nintendo announced Splatoon 2's Octo expansion DLC is now included as part of Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack.
I gotta say, I could get used to them putting these DLC packs on the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, whatever it is. That's just a nice little like add-in. I already bought the Octo expansion, but Mark, I know that you hadn't.
Yeah, I didn't. So now it's like, the reputation of the Octo expansion pack is that it's very difficult, and so that kind of turned me off of it. But now that I could dabble, as part of the subscription that I already pay for, makes it much more appealing for me to check out for sure.
I tell you what, that I think the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack is a good deal. I think it has been a good deal, and I think it just keeps sort of like reproving itself as a good deal. When did this thing get announced? When did we start it? The end of last year, like November maybe?
That's what October is when it
October.
released. Yeah.
So in the 6 months that it's been out, plus or minus, they've added 3 different DLC packs to it. Like that's a pretty good record. And then they keep putting Genesis games and Nintendo 64 games on there, and all for $50 a year. I don't know. It seems like if you are willing to engage in the content that they're presenting you, and a lot of it is fun, it seems absolutely worth it to me.
Yeah, it's interesting to me what games like in DLC they have not included.
Sure.
And like the fighter packs for
that, they're never going to do that.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Part of it I think is like the perpetuity
Yes.
of the subscription, and the licensing probably with like the different characters, like Sora and stuff like that.
I think that's definitely part of it, but I think the other part of it is that those are still very lucrative, that people are still buying a lot of them, and they're buying them in like different combinations, either the full packs or individual characters here and there, as we suggested last week. Just buy the characters you're interested in. But like the other, I think there's still room for like the Breath of the Wild DLC to come.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah.
Like this new Fire Emblem Warriors game, I'm assuming it's going to have like
Oh
an
yeah, it'll have a
expansion
ton.
pass.
Yeah.
And I wonder if those will be folded in or not. Like we might begin to see.
Right.
And another reason why it makes sense that now that I'm saying it, that Smash Brothers would not be included is they haven't. All of this has been forward looking, right? It's like DLC that came out when the expansion pack has been available,
with the exception of
forward.
the Octo expansion.
Oh yeah, that's true. The one we were
the
just
reason
talking
the
about.
reason that we're even talking about this at all.
So yeah, but it at least has the synergy with like Splatoon.
Right.
But I do, yeah, fair point.
But that does make me wonder if like in the lead up to the new Pokemon games coming out, if they're like, okay, now the expansion for Sword and Shield is free with the expansion pass, or you mentioned the Fire Emblem Warriors game, if they would make the Age of Calamity expansion part of that, like if they can keep using that to like resurface the extra content from these games that people have already played to get them just like back in the mood to play that kind of game again, that's pretty smart. So yeah, I don't know. I hope they keep doing it, or they could do the Fire Emblem content as part of the expansion pack too.
For 3 houses.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder with
3, yeah, that's perfect. They got to do that.
Well, it's all. I mean, this is
They're not going to do anything.
We're way into speculation territory, but I wonder if we won't see it for the Fire Emblem Muso that comes out in Three Hopes. Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
that
Three
comes
Hopes,
out
yeah.
in June, because it's co-developed by Bandai Namco. And maybe we wouldn't see it for Fire Emblem because that IP is half owned by Intelligent Systems. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
maybe
and ditto Pokemon as well.
Right.
That like Game Freak and the rest of the Pokemon company. That it just, where Nintendo has like absolute ownership of something, they're like, yeah, okay, sure, it goes out as part of the expansion.
I mean, since they've started doing this DLC stuff, I don't think we've had a game released that could potentially fall into being included in the expansion pack that also has these like third-party complications. So it will be interesting to see how that's handled going forward. Is it like the majority of DLC ends up on expansion pack, just Nintendo first party?
Yeah. I mean, like Nintendo first party developed, right?
Right.
Is what we're looking at right now. That's Splatoon. That's Animal Crossing. That's Mario Kart. Yeah. That I would actually, Mark, that's great, and that's probably it. Like that, we've probably unlocked it right there. Is that we shouldn't expect free DLC packs unless they are like fully developed and published by Nintendo.
An unnamed worker has filed a complaint with the U.S. National Labor Relations Board saying that Nintendo of America and staffing agency Aston Carter violated their rights to unionize. The NLRB will investigate and can take action against the company if they are found in violation of labor laws. It seems like it's early in the process. The complaint just became public. For their part, Nintendo issued a statement claiming that the contractor was fired for revealing confidential information and no other reason.
Interesting. So this is, I mean, I feel like we don't have a lot of information on this.
Completely.
But games workers need to have some sort of protections. It's just such a like kind of predatory business. It just in how many people want to be a part of it, and how easy like burnout and like overworking is. Yeah, it's I would believe it that someone was unfairly let go for
I would
talking
100%
about
believe it too,
unionizing.
especially, a lot of companies are not just video game companies, but a lot of companies in general nowadays are like hiring contractors,
Yes,
and you are not actually you're working for the company, but you don't have the
right. You're
benefits
not
of being a full-time
employed by
employee.
them. Yeah.
And that is a very tricky situation. I don't know if you ever worked in, I have, where I've been like a contractor for a large company but not actually working for the company, and so you're integrated with them a lot of times, but you don't have the same rights or benefits. And it is a very like sticky situation because you are I this is speaking to my own experience. I obviously have no idea what the relationship at Nintendo was like, but you are often, like kind of like the carrot is dangled that you could become a full-time
Right.
employee,
Right.
and you don't want to jeopardize that. But the jump from contractor to full-time is obviously very fraught because if these companies were hiring full-time people, they wouldn't be working with the contracting agencies in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's also just you're just cheaper when you're a contractor because there's so many things that they don't have to pay for. The tax burden falls on you. Any sort of insurance burden falls on you, which is obviously way different when you are a full time employee. Um, I've not had the experience where I'm like reporting every day somewhere, but like I have done, contractor work before, and like yeah, it's not fun when you're like, hey, I'm working really hard. Like why am I not being rewarded as though I'm working as hard as I am? So yeah, for those reasons, like go get them. Let's investigate this and make Nintendo pony up if they are currently not.
Along with last week's leak of Game Boy and Game Boy Advance emulators for possible inclusion with Nintendo Switch Online, additional leaks involving the NES emulator have potentially revealed future games that could be coming to the service.
Or, and we will talk about this when you read the list of games, it has thrown the entire venture into question, into chaos. Now we can look at these games and say those aren't coming to the NES. That means we should not trust the Game Boy emulator leaks at all.
So, according to Twitter user Orchestra, the leaked build of the NES Online application comes from October 2019 and includes games that are currently not released: Pac-Man, Tetris, Galaga, Mega Man, and Castlevania.
No way are Pac-Man, Tetris, Mega Man, or Castlevania coming to the Nintendo,
So,
the NES Switch
why
Online.
why Pac-Man specific? Like, why would Pac-Man not make it?
Pac-Man is the least strong example. The Tetris, Mega Man, and Castlevania. Every release of Tetris is so tied up in very specific licensing that I don't think Nintendo has the like the pull to re-release any version of it ever. We talked about this when we were guessing the Game Boy, the Virtual Console Library or whatever we were calling it. And I made the point that Game Boy Tetris has never been re-released off the Game Boy because they can't. Every other Game Boy launch game is on the DS Virtual Console or 3DS Virtual Console. Tetris is not. So that's one that I think just absolutely not. Mega Man, there aren't any Capcom games, or there are some Capcom games, but Mega Man is so tied up in the legacy collections, and ditto Castlevania that it has its own collections. Those companies are interested in selling those games, not in letting them be part of Nintendo's subscription service.
That's a good point. So, just to finish the thought
Yes.
that Orchestra has on Twitter, they say that the games being rolled out officially have mostly lined up with what's in the leaked application.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible that the releases are set up far in advance and shows that these games might be up for release. But to your point, Patrick, I also believe it's possible that these games were tested, and
Mm-hmm.
possibly like work with the emulator, but for that doesn't mean that the agreements were in place with Capcom or
Right. Konami.
Konami
Right.
in order to actually release them. So we may never see this.
Yeah, I mean, and that is my bet. But that also means that I think we're seeing so far behind the curtain here that we're getting into the realm of like stuff that doesn't matter and like we'll never see release, which makes me sort of sad about the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance leaks that we were talking about last week.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that this is from October 2019, that's
a
more
long
than
time
2
ago.
years ago
Yeah.
at this point.
That's pre-pandemic.
Yeah. And I really don't know what. I think at this point it could be true that the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, emulators or services are eventually coming to Switch, but I agree with you that it is at this point equally possible that we will never see it.
Here I think is maybe evidence in favor of these games coming out. The Pac-Man version or the NES version of Pac-Man is bad, and Mega Man is like the worst Mega Man game that came out on the NES. So that totally fits in line with like what they would release on the NES Switch Online, where it's just like not the ideal version of a game that you want to play.
On their personal Twitter account, Takeya Imamura, the original character designer for Star Fox, has expressed interest in wanting to see Star Fox Zero on Switch.
Okay.
Now you and I played Star Fox Zero together for an episode of this show a few years back at this point, and our impressions of it were fine.
Yeah, we liked it. Okay. There are parts of it that I don't know. The control scheme is so specific to the Wii U. You have to like actually use the gamepad in conjunction with.
Yeah, so the part of it that's so specific is that one player, if you're playing in co-op, used the gamepad.
Right, as like the gunner seat, basically.
Right, and you're
in the plane.
Yeah.
And so you are the plane.
You have like a first-person view.
Yeah. But that's only for the gunning. The flying happens based on what you see on the TV. So like it is a necessarily dual screen experience.
The co-op piece of it.
No, the regular version of it.
Oh, because if you're only playing with one character, you're always using the gamepad version? Yeah. Oh, interesting.
And seeing what's on the screen at the same time. So like it is it's a mess, but it's also a mess that like can't really be replicated on a single screen.
If it was me, the Star Fox game that I want to be able to play is Star Fox Adventures. Because the GameCube one, like that used to be Dinosaur Planet.
Yes, okay.
Because I want to experience that game again.
Sure.
I want to play through it. I think that I wonder if playing it again, I would appreciate it more now that I kind of like understand its place in history.
Yeah, I mean, just as like a curiosity, I think that would be fun and relatively easy to bring over to Switch. I mean, I also want to see like Assault. Just like a straight up Star Fox game.
Was that the one for DS?
No.
Was that the Back to the Roots one? Or that was Command?
That's Command, yeah.
Which one was Assault? That's
the one that's like back to that's just like a regular flying
that's
one.
Also on GameCube.
That's also on GameCube, yeah.
That was developed by like Namco or something.
Someone like that, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's what the HD like remake thing that was
yes.
it Bandai Namco last week we were talking about.
There we go.
They had a job listing for like a Nintendo contracted up-res or remake of some game.
What if it's a collection of the GameCube Star Fox games?
Yes.
There we go.
I would love that.
Mark, we're so good.
Imamura also offered his services on a sequel to Star Fox Zero if Nintendo ever wanted to pursue it.
Sure, hire him. Whatever. He's the original character designer?
Yeah.
Huh, okay.
Last week, Sega revealed Sonic Origins, a game that had previously been announced, but we had like no details on it before this week. It's an all-new collection of classic Sonic games. So the all-new part of it is the bundling of it.
Well, the bundling and the remastering of it.
Oh, that's right. So it includes the first 3 games and Sonic and Knuckles.
Which means that that's also like the Sonic and Knuckles version of Sonic 2 and the Sonic and Knuckles version of Sonic 3.
You're gonna have to
Yeah,
explain that to
I
me.
gotcha. So, Sonic and Knuckles, as it was originally released, is like a game cartridge that has like an open top where you can plug other games into it. They called this lock-on technology at the time. The game itself is a full game, Sonic and Knuckles, but you can put your copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 into it, and it allows you to play Sonic 3 as Knuckles.
Oh, that's cool.
Ditto Sonic 2 also allows you to play as Knuckles. So like it is is this a collection of 4 games or 6 games? It's not really, I mean like it allows you to experience everything that you would have been able to experience if you had Sonic, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles.
Gotcha. Also, it was revealed that Headcanon, the studio behind the excellent Sonic Mania, is working on the remaster of at least one of the games. It wasn't clear to me if they're in charge of all of them, but
Right.
at least one of them.
Mm-hmm. And that there are like new anime cutscenes or like animated cutscenes.
Oh, similar to
Yes.
Sonic Mania.
Yeah, that are also handled by the same studio that had either is Headcanon or that Headcanon was working with.
And you have a note here that it's notable for this collection that it actually includes Sonic 3 because the game has been missing from most Sonic and Sega collections in the last 10 years.
Yeah, so again, it was in the collection that I had on the GameCube, but I think that's the last time Sonic 3 was available or was sold kind of anywhere. It's just a weird little relic, and I think it's related to music rights relating to the music, which may or may not have been composed, at least in part, by Michael Jackson, that is tied up in some sort of legal whatever. And I don't know how they're able to release it now, or if that was never the case. I don't know the whole story here. I don't know that anyone does.
That's so fascinating, though, because it'd be like if Mario 3 was
Yes.
just out of circulation for a decade.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
so crazy. There's also some weird DLC pre-order, special edition nonsense happening
Yeah,
here.
chicanery for sure.
The official release and tweet announcing everything includes this pre-order chart
Yes.
that has 5 different.
The standard edition, the Start Dash Pack, the Premium Fun Pack, the Classic Music Pack, and the Digital Deluxe Edition. And I think the Digital Deluxe Edition gets you basically everything.
Yeah.
But they're really doing a piecemeal thing here, to I guess just to offer a lower price point for the most basic version of the game. But if you just buy the regular game and don't pre-order it, then you miss out on here. So here are the other things beyond the main game. There are 100 bonus coins, whatever, that's just in-game currency, a mirror mode, hard missions, letterbox background, character animations in the main menu, which what are we talking about? Camera controls over the main menu islands, character animations during music islands, additional music tracks from Mega Drive / Genesis titles. It seems like they're just taking some of the more museum-y content and locking them behind additional releases or just more money.
Well, yeah, and some of it's not even museum-y content. 3 of these are just things you can do on the main menu. So if you just buy the standard edition,
Yes.
you do not get character animations in the main menu. Presumably it's just static images, but what a weird thing to nickel and dime people on.
Because it really, and I know this is the case with a lot of DLC, and I'm probably a big hypocrite here, but it's just you're just taking away a feature of the presentation of the game.
Seemingly a very basic feature.
Yeah, and why not? yeah. And I know I say why not just include it, and the answer is because you can charge for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And finally, with Nintendo Switch Sports coming out this week, we should to look at the various physical rewards that come with pre-ordering from different retailers, kind of figure out our retail strategy.
Right. This was the little bit of how you're going to buy it that I wanted to save until this specific point in the show, because all physical versions of the game come with the leg strap that will be part of the soccer game at launch, right? Or does that update come later?
I think the update comes later. But it'd be weird, but maybe not, because it seems like it'd be weird to sell the leg strap for a feature that is not included at launch.
Right. The leg strap, you may already have it if you have Ring Fit Adventure. In fact, you do already have it if you have Ring Fit Adventure. Or you can buy one separately for $9.99. If you buy the game physically, it comes with a leg strap. Digitally, obviously, it doesn't, because how could it? And there's a $10 price difference between the physical and digital versions. Mark, what are you planning to do?
I think I'm just going to pick it up digitally. So
Okay.
I'm going to buy it off the eShop, pay the $40. But now
And
that
have no leg strap.
and how well I have one from Ring Fit
Oh,
Adventure.
okay, very good.
I have one.
Yes.
But as I'm saying that out loud, part of the fun and part of the reason I'm picking up Nintendo Switch Sports at all is I think it'll be something that is fun, to play when I visit my nieces and nephews and that sort of
Yes,
thing. And so
yes.
now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I should buy it physically so I can actually take the game cart with me.
Oh boy, what a good
So that
point.
way I don't have to like sign in with my own Switch or sign in with my own Nintendo account and authorize it, or have like
Or bring your Switch.
or have somebody buy it again. Like maybe I should just buy it physically so that way I can take it with me when I go somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. And then also you've got that extra. Here's the thing with the leg strap, which is a piece of equipment that I think works, pretty well and like is sort of miraculous in how it can transform a Joy-Con. That thing is soaked in my sweat.
It's so gross.
I don't.
It is really gross.
I never want to inflict it on any other human being. The ring, fine. Like it doesn't get that bad. Like, sure, my palms get a little sweaty when I'm playing with it, but like that's not a big deal. The leg strap, that is like thigh sweat that it is just marinating in.
It's pretty gross. Also, from doing Ring Fit Adventure, my thighs are getting enormous. And
I was gonna
built.
say, but I didn't want.
And so, that thing is always just like straining
that's
to,
right.
to stay on
That's
and
right.
not
That's
snap
right.
in half. So always good to have a backup.
This is what I'm saying, is that just maybe good to have a backup for an activity that's not, because Nintendo Switch Sports is not going to really be an exercise thing. It'll make you move around a little bit, but that's not the point of it. I don't know. I almost think that I want to buy it physically as well, just to have that extra strap for someone not me to use.
I mean, the Nintendo Switch Sports is not something that I intend to like mainline and put like hundreds of hours into, but I'm excited to have
Me too.
like these games available again because, visiting nieces and nephews and that sort of thing, like that is real. And I think this will be a killer.
Yeah.
This will be a killer app for opportunities like that.
Yeah, I think so too. The other sort of just like pre-order stuff from retailers first in the US, Walmart has kind of a cool metal water bottle. I can't remember the last time I bought something from Walmart, but the water bottle looks pretty good. I like a good metal water bottle. Target has a drawstring backpack. I also like using a drawstring backpack. Just something about a backpack that collapses into nothing. Very appealing to me. And in the UK My Nintendo store, if you pre-order there, you get a plastic water bottle, which also looks pretty good.
Do you know what I think is this is a total sidebar.
Yeah.
That I think is really funny about Walmart. I was going to say interesting, but I actually think it's funny. Is that in the late 90s when Walmart was just building out like crazy, like
Yeah.
they were everywhere. There were lots and lots of articles about Walmart pushing out small businesses, small like hardware stores, small grocery stores, all that kind of stuff, which was absolutely true. That definitely did happen. But now if you're watching like TV and you see a commercial for Walmart in the face of Amazon, now like Walmart is kind of the scrappy, company that is. And so they portray themselves as like your neighborhood market. Walmart is always there for your neighborhood because they are the ones who are being driven out of business.
Yeah, no, the Overton window on that has absolutely shifted where we're like, no. Walmart, Target, Best Buy, these aren't the huge evil companies anymore. They're now the underdogs.
Yeah. Support your local Walmart.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. And that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, follow, and review us on Apple Podcasts or any place you can do that. If you like the episode, please share it on Facebook or Twitter. We appreciate it when you do. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.
Hey, Oscar, Rachel, do you like Disney movies?
Yeah!
Have you seen all of them?
Yeah, we saw all the Disney animated movies.
And we saw all the Pixar animated movies, too.
How about the DComs?
What?
The Disney Channel original movies. You should listen to our podcast, Inside the Disney Vault, because we are watching all of them in chronological order.
Yeah, and we do fun segments, like we cast each other.
That's right, and my favorite segment, Zaddy Watch, where we rank every single DCOM daddy.
Ooh, you can listen to all this fun stuff on our podcast, Inside the Disney Vault on Campfire Media, wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, guys, let's get back in the vault. It's cold out here.
Campfire.